Princess Karen of the Zilirian Empire sat in the grand hall, her silver eyes scanning the row of warriors standing before her. The air smelled of polished metal and burning incense, the scent of formality that had followed her since birth. Each warrior was tall, broad-shouldered, and covered in ceremonial armor, their eyes filled with pride. They all came here for one reason, to become her mate. She was supposed to feel honored. Her people said these were the strongest males of the galaxy, the finest her empire could offer. But as Karen looked at them, all she felt was emptiness. She had seen the same faces, the same attitudes, the same arrogant smiles for years. None of them made her heart race. None of them made her feel alive. Her advisors whispered behind her. They thought she could not hear, but she always did. "The princess is too picky," one muttered. "If she does not choose soon, the council will be forced to decide for her," another said. Karen kept her face calm. She was a princess. Her feelings did not matter in politics. But inside, a restless ache had been growing for years. Something in her heart told her she would know when the right one came. And it would not be anyone like these men. That day, as the warriors bowed and left the hall, Karen's attention was caught by movement near the far doors. A small group had entered, dressed not in the heavy armor of Zilirians, but in light jackets and boots. Their skin tones varied, their builds less imposing. Humans. Humans were rare in her world. They were traders, explorers, and sometimes mercenaries, but never warriors in the way her people understood it. They were considered fragile. Her eyes locked on one of them. He stood slightly apart from the others, scanning the hall with quiet interest. His hair was dark brown, his skin lightly tanned. He carried no weapon, no armor, only a small case in his hand. And yet, there was something in the way he moved, calm, steady, as if he did not feel out of place in the heart of the Zilirian Empire. "Who is that?" Karen asked her guard quietly. "A human diplomat, Your Highness. His name is Cole. He arrived this morning with a shipment of rare minerals for the council." Cole. The name felt strange on her tongue. She watched as he spoke with one of the officials. He smiled politely, and there was no arrogance in it, no attempt to impress. Just warmth. Without thinking, Karen stood. Her guard stiffened as she began walking toward the human. Conversation stopped. Eyes followed her across the hall. Cole noticed her approach and gave a respectful nod. "Princess," he said in a calm voice. His tone surprised her. Most males tried to sound deeper, more commanding in her presence. But Cole's voice was natural, as if he was speaking to an equal. "Welcome to Ziliria," she said. "I hear you have brought minerals for the council." "Yes," Cole replied. "From the Kelnar system. Your engineers requested them for starship repairs." She studied him for a moment. "And you are a trader?" He shook his head lightly. "Diplomat first, trader second. I carry messages, goods, and sometimes help solve misunderstandings between worlds." Karen tilted her head. "And are you here only for business?" Cole smiled faintly. "I go where I'm needed, Princess. Sometimes that's for trade. Sometimes it's for peace." She felt a strange pull in her chest. This man did not boast of victories or wealth. He did not talk about his strength. Instead, he spoke with a calm certainty, as if his value did not need to be proven in words. Their conversation lasted only a few minutes before a council member approached, reminding Cole of his meeting. He gave her a polite bow before leaving, his steps unhurried. When Karen returned to her throne, her advisors were already whispering again. "A human princess? Surely you do not think—" She raised a hand, and they fell silent. "I think," she said slowly, "that you should not judge a being by his size or the thickness of his armor." That night, Karen could not sleep. She kept seeing Cole's face, hearing his voice. It was absurd. She had spoken to him only once, Yet it had felt different, and deep down, she knew something dangerous was beginning. The next morning, Karen walked through the royal gardens, the cool air carrying the scent of pale blue blossoms. The sun was still low, casting long shadows across the marble paths. She often came here to think, away from the noise of the council hall. But today, her thoughts were not on politics or duty. They were on the human called Cole. She told herself it was only curiosity. Humans were rare in Zaleria and rarer still in the royal palace. That was reason enough to wonder about him. Yet in truth, she knew it was more than that. Something about him had unsettled her, like a faint chord of music that refused to fade from her mind. As she turned a corner, she saw him. Cole was standing near the fountain, speaking with one of the palace attendants. He wore the same simple jacket as yesterday, his case resting on the edge of the fountain. When he saw her, he straightened slightly, his expression warm but respectful. "Princess," he greeted, inclining his head. "You are up early," she said, stepping closer. "Habit," he replied with a small smile. "Humans tend to rise with the sun. And I find the gardens are a peaceful place before the day begins." She studied him. "Most visitors spend their mornings in the guest quarters, resting after travel." "Resting is easier when you have nothing on your mind," Cole said, glancing at the water. "But I tend to think too much." There was no arrogance in his tone, no attempt to impress. It made her curious. "And what is it you think about? Human diplomat?" He hesitated for a moment, then said, "How different worlds might understand each other better, and how often they choose not to try." His words carried weight. Karen tilted her head. "You speak as if you've seen such failures often?" Cole nodded slightly. "I have. Too many wars begin not because one side is evil, but because neither side tries to listen." She felt a flicker of respect for him. It was strange. She had spent years surrounded by warriors who spoke only of battles won and territories claimed. Here was someone speaking of understanding instead. They walked together through the garden, their conversation flowing easily. Cole asked questions. Not about her wealth or power, but about her people's traditions, her childhood, her interests. It was unusual. Most suitors she had met wanted to speak about themselves. At one point, they passed a tall, flowering vine, its blooms opening in the morning light. Karen reached out and touched one of the petals. "This plant is rare," she said. "It blooms only for a short time each year." Cole looked at it for a moment, then said, "That makes it more beautiful, doesn't it? Because you know it. Won't last forever." The simple observation struck her more deeply than she expected. As they reached the garden's edge, a voice called out sharply, "Princess!" Two members of the royal council approached, their expressions tense. One of them, Councillor Drev, glanced at Cole with open disapproval. "Your Highness, the council meeting begins shortly, and—" His eyes narrowed at the human. "It may not be wise for you to be seen in private conversation with a visitor." Karen's voice cooled. "Cole is an honored guest of the palace. I will speak with whomever I wish." Drev's mouth tightened, but he bowed. "As you command." The councillors left, their muttered voices fading into the distance. Cole exhaled softly. "I didn't mean to cause trouble for you." "You didn't," she said firmly. "They are simply unused to anyone outside our people having my attention." He gave a faint, knowing smile. "And I suppose that makes them nervous." "Perhaps," she admitted. "But I do not choose my company based on their comfort." They stood there for a moment, the air between them quiet but charged with unspoken meaning. Before she could speak again, a messenger hurried toward them. "Princess, the council requests your presence immediately. There is a matter of the trial of proving." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "The trial?" The messenger hesitated. Yes, Your Highness. The Council wishes to add a new participant, a human. Her gaze shifted to Cole. He raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised. It seems, she said, slowly, that the Council is more curious about you than they care to admit. Cole studied her for a long moment before saying, "Then I suppose I should find out what this trial is." And though she didn't show it, Karen's heart quickened. She knew exactly what the trial of proving meant, and what dangers it carried for someone like him. The great proving arena was a vast circle of black stone, its walls rising high above the sand-covered floor. Banners of the Zalirian Empire hung from every arch, their golden symbols glinting in the sunlight. Crowds filled the stands, their voices a low roar of excitement. Cole stood in the center, feeling the heat of the sun on his face. He wore no armor, only a light protective vest given to him that morning. In contrast, the other three competitors, 2 Zalirians and 1 Drask warrior, were covered in heavy plates of metal, their weapons gleaming. Princess Karen sat in the royal viewing box above, her gaze fixed on him. She had argued with the council late into the night, insisting the trial was unnecessary for someone not seeking the throne. The council had ignored her, claiming it was only a friendly test. But Karen knew the truth. They wanted to see the human fail. The trial of proving was split into 3 challenges: strength, intelligence, and spirit. Winning all 3 was rare. Surviving them was not guaranteed. A deep drum sounded, and the first challenge began. 4 massive gates opened at the edges of the arena, releasing mechanical beasts, training constructs built to mimic dangerous predators. Their metal limbs clanked against the stone as they advanced. Each warrior was given a long staff to defend themselves. The Zalirians charged immediately, meeting the machines head-on with loud battle cries. The Drask swung his staff in wide, crushing arcs, his sheer strength breaking through armor plating. Cole did not charge. Instead, he moved sideways, studying the machines. He noticed the way their joints moved, the slight pause before they attacked. While the others used brute force, he struck at the weakest points, behind the legs, under the neck. His attacks were quick, precise, and he avoided unnecessary hits. The crowd began to notice. Instead of exhausting himself, the human was dismantling, each machine piece by piece. When the last beast fell, Cole was barely out of breath. The other warriors stood panting, their armor dented. "First challenge complete," the announcer called. Karen allowed herself the smallest smile. The second challenge began almost immediately. Servants brought out a large stone table with a complicated puzzle carved into its surface, an ancient Zalirian test of intelligence. The goal was to align dozens of small shifting plates into the correct formation before time ran out. The warriors sat before their puzzles. The Zalirians began moving pieces quickly but without much thought, relying on speed. Cole, however, paused to study the design. He noticed a repeating pattern in the carvings and worked steadily, never rushing. Halfway through, the Drask became frustrated, slamming a piece down and damaging his puzzle. The Zalirians made progress, but hit dead ends, having to undo parts of their work. Cole kept going, his hands sure and steady. With minutes to spare, he slid the final piece into place. The board lit with a soft golden glow, the signal of success. The crowd murmured in surprise. Winning the intelligence trial was rare for outsiders. Karen's eyes met his across the arena, and something unspoken passed between them. Then came the third challenge, the test of spirit. This trial was not about fighting or solving puzzles. It was about enduring fear. The competitors were led into a dark tunnel beneath the arena, each placed in a separate chamber. Inside, they would face illusions drawn from their deepest doubts and memories. For warriors, this often meant reliving past battles or personal failures. For Cole, The chamber, filled with the image of a burning settlement, the smell of smoke and ash. People called for help, and he ran toward them, only to find himself powerless, his hands empty. He knew it was not real. He told himself this again and again. But the feeling of helplessness was sharp, the memory of a mission years ago where he had failed to save everyone. Instead of giving in, he forced himself to move forward, through the flames, past the cries. The illusion tried to pull him back, but he kept going until he saw light ahead. When he stepped into it, the scene shattered, and he found himself back in the arena. One of the Zilirians had already withdrawn, shaking from whatever he had seen. The Drask emerged soon after, silent and grim. Cole walked out last, his step steady. The judges gathered, speaking in low voices. After a moment, the announcer's voice rang out, "The human Cole has passed all 3 trials." The crowd erupted. In cheers and astonished shouts, Karen rose to her feet, her heart pounding. Against every expectation, Cole had succeeded. Not with raw strength, but with patience, intelligence, and quiet courage. But as the noise filled the arena, she saw the dark expressions on some council members' faces. His victory had not pleased them. It had unsettled them, and Karen knew this was only the beginning of a greater battle. The celebration after the trial was small but loud. The arena's crowd had followed Cole out into the city streets, shouting his name, curious to see more of the human who had beaten the Zilirian challenge. Traders offered him drinks, children pointed in awe, and even some warriors clapped him on the back in respect. But not everyone was happy. In the high council chambers, quiet conversations carried a sharp edge. To many, Cole's victory was more than a surprise. It was a disruption. Karen ignored the whispers. She found Cole standing in the palace courtyard that evening, the fading, sunlight turning the white stone walls a soft gold. He was alone, leaning against a pillar, his gaze on the horizon. "You should be inside enjoying the food and the music," she said as she approached. He glanced at her and smiled faintly. "Too many people asking the same questions. I thought I'd give them a break." "And what questions are those?" "How a human managed to win their trials. Some are curious, some less friendly about it." She studied him. "You don't seem bothered." He shrugged. "I didn't come here to impress them. I came to trade minerals and maybe make a few friends. The trials weren't my plan." Her lips curved slightly. "And yet, you passed them all." He met her eyes. "Maybe because I wasn't trying to win. I was just trying to survive." They walked together along the courtyard's edge. The evening air was cool, carrying the scent of the nearby gardens. "You surprised them," she said softly. "And you surprised me. In a good way, I hope. In a way that makes me think you see the world differently than most people." "I know," he smiled, a little more warmly this time. "Maybe that's because humans spend so much of their time as the underdog. We can't always match others in strength or size, so we learn to think around problems instead of smashing through them." They stopped by a stone bench near a fountain. The water's steady sound filled the silence between them. "Do you know why I have not chosen a mate?" Karen asked suddenly. Cole hesitated. "Because none of them were right for you?" "Because none of them truly saw me," she said. "They saw the crown. They saw the alliance they could gain. They saw a victory to be claimed. But they did not see me, only what I could give them." Cole looked at her for a long moment. "And you think I see you?" "I think," she said slowly, "that you speak to me as if I'm not a prize to be won. And that is rare." Before he could answer, the sound of footsteps echoed behind them. 2 council members approached, their expressions polite but cold. "Princess," one said with a bow, "the council requests your presence. There is an urgent matter." Karen did not move. "This can wait. Forgive us, Your Highness, but it cannot. There are concerns about the human's presence here." Cole sighed quietly. "I think that's my cue to leave." But Karen stepped forward, her voice firm. He will remain my guest for as long as I wish it. Tell the council they can bring their concerns to me directly." The counselors exchanged glances before bowing again and leaving. Cole raised an eyebrow. "I appreciate the defense, but you might have just made things harder for yourself." "Perhaps," she admitted, "but I do not choose my actions based on what is easy." The rest of the evening passed quietly. Later, as Cole prepared to return to his guest quarters, Karen found herself lingering at the door. "Tomorrow," she said, "I will show you something most outsiders never see." His curiosity sparked. "Should I be worried?" She smiled faintly. "Only if you fear learning the truth about the Zalirian Empire." As he left, Karen stood in the empty corridor, aware of the storm brewing within the council. Cole's presence had already shifted the balance. His victories had not just impressed her, they had made enemies among those who feared change. And Karen knew that if the council could not remove him quietly, they might try something far more dangerous. The next morning, the palace felt different. There was a heaviness in the air, a sense that something was about to happen. Karen noticed it as soon as she left her chambers. The guards seemed tense. The servants moved quickly, and the usual morning chatter was absent. Cole met her in the central hall, looking curious. "You said you'd show me something today," he reminded her. "I did," she said, though her mind was already turning over the strange mood in the palace. "But first, I want to understand why everyone seems so uneasy." Before Cole could answer, a royal messenger approached. "Princess, the council requests that you and the human attend a special exhibition in the proving arena." Karen's eyes narrowed. "Exhibition?" "A friendly match," the messenger explained quickly, "to demonstrate skill and unity between species." She didn't believe it for a moment. Still, refusing might look suspicious, so she nodded. Very well, the proving arena was already packed when they arrived. The crowd's energy felt different from the trials, more expectant, as if they knew something was about to happen. Cole stood in the center again, but this time there was only one opponent, a Zalirian warrior named Varek, known for his brutality in combat. His armor was heavier than before, and his weapon, a long-bladed spear, gleamed under the sun. Karen moved to the royal viewing box, her stomach tight. She caught sight of Counselor Drev watching from the shadows, his eyes fixed on Cole with a faint smile that chilled her. The announcer's voice boomed. "Today, we witness a display of unity, human skill against Zalirian tradition." The match began. Varek moved fast, striking with precision meant to overwhelm. Cole dodged, using speed over force, but there was something wrong. Varek's spear wasn't a practice weapon. The blade was sharp, deadly. Karen's hands gripped the railing. This wasn't an exhibition. It was an attempt to remove Cole under the guise of a contest. The fight was brutal. Cole managed to avoid several direct hits, using quick footwork and turning the spear's reach against Varek. But the Zalirian's attacks kept coming faster, each one aimed to kill. "Stop the match," Karen said sharply to the nearby official. "Princess, it is only a demonstration." "That weapon is real," she snapped. "Stop it now." The official hesitated, clearly torn between obeying her and following the council's orders. In the arena, Varek lunged with a powerful thrust. Cole sidestepped, grabbing the spear shaft and twisting hard, sending the weapon skidding across the sand. Varek roared and charged barehanded, but Cole caught him with a calculated throw, sending him crashing to the ground. The crowd erupted in cheers and gasps. Varek lay stunned, and Cole stepped back, breathing hard but still standing. Karen didn't. "Wait for protocol." She left the viewing box and walked straight into the arena. The guards tried to follow, but she waved them off. "Are you hurt?" she asked Cole, scanning him for injuries. "A few bruises," he said, "but nothing serious." Her voice dropped low. "That was no accident. They wanted you dead." He gave her a steady look. "I figured. The way he came at me, it wasn't for show." She turned to face the officials. "This match is over, And if I hear of any more accidents involving my guests, there will be consequences." The crowd murmured at her words, sensing the tension. The council members in attendance looked displeased, but none spoke against her directly. As they left the arena together, Cole asked quietly, "Why risk standing up for me? You've already made enemies by keeping me around." "Because," she said firmly, "you have done nothing to deserve this. And because—" She hesitated, her gaze meeting his. "I will not watch someone I respect be destroyed for the sake of politics." They walked in silence for a moment. The palace loomed. Ahead, its white towers sharp against the sky. "So what happens now?" Cole finally asked. "Now," Karen said, her voice carrying both defiance and certainty, "we prepare for the council's next move, because they will not stop until one of us yields, and I do not intend for that to be us." Inside, she already knew the next steps would be dangerous. The council would not forgive his survival, and if she was right, they would soon force her to make a choice between protecting him and protecting the fragile balance of her empire. The council chamber was silent when Karen entered. The high ceiling made every step echo, and the eyes of 12 council members followed her as she walked to the center. Cole stood at her side, unarmed but calm, his expression unreadable. She knew what this was. They had called an emergency session not because of politics or trade, but because of him. The exhibition in the arena had failed, and now they would try a different method. Pressure. Counselor Drev was the first to speak. "Princess Karen, your actions have caused concern. You have placed unusual importance on this human, elevating him beyond his station." "Beyond his station." Her voice was cool. "He has done nothing but show courage, intelligence, and restraint. Qualities that should be valued in this empire." "He is an outsider," another counselor said sharply. "Our traditions do not allow a human to be in such close proximity to the throne. It invites instability." Cole spoke before she could. "If your problem is with me, say it plainly. I didn't come here to take anything from you. I came here to trade, to help where I could. You put me in your trials and I played by your rules. I didn't cheat. I didn't break your laws. I survived." The bluntness of his words made several counselors shift in their seats. Karen felt a flicker of pride. "Surviving is not enough," Drev said coldly. "The Empire's stability is fragile." Whispers spread quickly. "Some already question your judgment, Princess." She stepped forward, her voice clear. "My judgment is not yours to approve. And since you seem determined to question it, let me be even clearer." She turned to face the full chamber. "I choose Cole as my ally, as my protector, and, if it comes to it, as my mate." The silence that followed was sharp as a blade. One counselor rose to his feet, outrage on his face. "This is against centuries of tradition." "Then perhaps," she said steadily, "it is time our traditions changed." The chamber erupted in voices, some angry, some astonished. Cole stood still beside her, but she could feel the tension in his stance. "You are risking war," Drev warned. "There are those among our own worlds who will not accept a human in such a role. Then they will have to decide if they value their pride more than the peace of the Empire," Karen replied. She turned to Cole, meeting his eyes. "You've been thrown into our world without warning. You've faced our trials, our suspicion, and our blades. I cannot promise the road ahead will be easy. But if you will stand with me, I will not let them destroy you." Cole's answer came without hesitation. "Then I stand with you." His voice carried no ceremony, no grand gesture, just the steady truth of a man who meant every word. The council could not overrule her outright, not without risking a crisis. But Karen knew this was not the end. It was the start of a storm. Outside the chamber, the palace halls buzzed with the news. Servants whispered, Guards exchanged glances, and by the time they reached the royal courtyard, the word had spread to the city beyond. In the days that followed, support began to appear in unexpected places. Some citizens were intrigued by the idea of a human at the princess's side, seeing it as a sign of strength rather than weakness. Others were furious, clinging to old beliefs. Karen and Cole spent those days preparing for whatever the council might attempt next. They trained together in the palace grounds, she showing him Zalirian sword techniques, he teaching her human methods of defense that relied on speed and surprise. Their bond grew stronger, not because of titles or politics, but because each had chosen the other in the face of danger. On the 7th day, an envoy from a neighboring world arrived, bearing a message for Karen. It was simple and clear. If the human remains, alliances will shift. Enemies will act. She read it in silence, then handed it to Cole. "This is what they warned about," she said quietly. He met her gaze. "And does it change your decision?" "No," she said without hesitation. "It only makes me more certain that choosing you was the right thing. Because if our empire can't stand by what is right, it's not worth defending." In the weeks to come, the galaxy would remember her words. They would speak of the Zalirian princess who defied her counsel, the human who stood beside her, and the day the empire began to change. And for Karen and Cole, it was not the end of the story. It was only the beginning of the life they would build together, no matter who stood in their way. After Karen's bold claim in the council chamber, the atmosphere in the palace changed completely. Whispers followed her everywhere, some filled with admiration, others with thinly veiled threats. Cole felt the weight of it too, sensing eyes watch him with suspicion or worse. But neither of them backed down. The days that followed were a test of endurance and courage. Karen and Cole met often in private, planning how to face the growing opposition. She shared with him the secrets of Zalirian politics, the alliances, the rivalries, and the unspoken rules that ruled her world. Cole listened carefully, learning fast. One evening, as the sun dipped low behind the Silver Mountains, Karen and Cole stood on a balcony overlooking the city. The lights began to flicker on, tiny stars against the darkening sky. Karen's voice broke the silence. "I never imagined things would come this far. The council's resistance is stronger than I feared." Cole looked at her, eyes steady. "They fear change. They fear what they don't understand. But you have something they don't. Your voice, your will, and the truth on your side." She smiled softly. "And you have my trust. That means more than any armor or sword." Just then, a messenger arrived, breathless. "Princess, urgent news from the border worlds. Several factions are preparing to challenge your authority, citing your alliance with the human as a threat to the Empire." Karen's jaw tightened. "They are readying for war." Cole placed a hand on her shoulder. "We face this together." In the following weeks, Karen addressed her people openly. She spoke of unity, of strength in diversity, and of the future. She wanted to build, not just for Zalirians, but for all who shared their space. Many listened, moved by her words. Some still doubted. But a new hope had begun to grow. Meanwhile, Cole trained tirelessly with the palace guard. He adapted his human fighting skills to Zalirian weapons and tactics. His determination inspired even the most skeptical warriors. One day, a challenge was issued. A powerful warlord from a rival planet sent a formal demand, a duel to settle the dispute. The stakes were clear. If Cole won, the warlord would withdraw his forces. If Cole lost, Karen's claim and alliance would be shattered. The day of the duel arrived under a stormy sky. Thunder rumbled as spectators gathered in the great arena. Karen stood at the edge, her heart pounding but her face calm. Cole stepped forward, facing his opponent, a massive warrior clad in dark armor, wielding a heavy axe. The crowd fell silent. The duel began with a clash of weapons and a test of strength. Cole moved quickly, dodging powerful strikes and looking for openings. The warlord was strong, but Cole's agility and careful strategy kept him alive. At one point, the warlord swung wildly, but Cole caught the axe mid-swing and twisted it aside. With a swift move, he disarmed the giant and pressed forward, forcing him to yield. The crowd erupted in cheers. Karen's eyes shone with pride and relief. After the duel, the warlord approached Cole and bowed deeply. "You have my respect, human. Your people may be small, but your spirit is great." Cole nodded. "Thank you. I fight not just for myself, but for the hope of peace." Karen stepped forward, taking Cole's hand in hers. "Today marks a new chapter, for our people and for the galaxy." As the sun broke through the storm clouds, light poured down over the arena. Together, Karen and Cole faced the future, united against all odds.